it is very important to understand how these member countries of the Board of Peace shall be putting in $5 billion. That's a very big amount. And I want to begin with Ali Ahmed in the studio before I can go to Norman. It is very authoritarian to see that it is a high stakes ball game and that countries are having to implement monetary issues in order to have some kind of participation. What is your views?
This is a good way of collecting money, because money would be needed. There will be, some people say 60, but it is about 100 billions of taka be needed. So, this is one of the ways. This may not be all that is needed. Further funding would be essential, but then this is a good first step if it comes to that. But the interesting thing that the Palestinian land and the Palestinians are not on the board, but Netanyahu, the occupying power, is there. So, that is a thing that is universally not acceptable otherwise. And why should he? If he pays for it, he should pay the whole thing, or at least the major part of it in America. But anyway, this is a good beginning, I should say, and discussions should go ahead. But if it is not good, then it won't finally be acceptable. That is the most important thing for the Palestinians.
Of course, and the recent movement towards seizing most of the occupied West Bank as a state property also shows Israelis' expansionist ideas and plans, some of which was released and which was held up by placards by Benjamin Netanyahu at the last UN General Assembly, which even I saw happening in my very own. Mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, had earlier on signed an executive order, and as of recent, it has blocked immigration and customs enforcement from its city, one of the biggest city inside the United States, the Big Apple, New York.
The biggest city, in fact.
Biggest city. So, once again, I want to understand firstly from Ali Ahmed in the studio regarding how the people-centric movement is happening, the administration versus the people, and that has happened in the last 46 days. We've seen numerous American lives being lost in the face of the administration. We've seen the U.S. military having foreign excursions on foreign
especially in
territory.
Minneapolis area, it was.
Especially in Minneapolis. So, I want to get a brief from you before I can move on with the Iran negotiations.
It is from the very beginning. Playing in Federal Reserve Police or Federal Army in the civilian area, it is absolutely unlawful. There was no need. It can be employed only when the security of the state is in danger, or when there is likely to be serious civil war, but nothing is there. It is a purely law enforcement issue, as one can understand, and normal police forces, they are sufficient to do it. But instead of using the state police force, he is bringing the federal sort of army. This is unlawful, and it has been done without congressional approval, but then President Donald Trump has been doing most of the things unlawfully. So, this is absolutely not covered by law, and it is not needed either, and it has resulted in fatalities. 2-3 persons have died in recent times. So, I think this is not going to do well for Donald Trump, although he seems not to care about what happens. But then a politician must also take care of how the people think and how the people react. But whenever there is a reaction from the people's side, he thinks it is the Democrats doing it. But people dying are not just Democrats, they are citizens of the United States. And this time it is the white citizens whom he cares for, supposed to care for. So, this is absolute, how do I say, absolute autocracy of the worst order in a democratically elected country.
The U.S. and Iran is set to be held in Geneva ahead of the second round of indirect talks with the United States. Abbas Araghchi has already arrived there. Not only so, the earlier talks was held in Muscat, Oman, which was the first diplomatic engagement since high tensions derailed earlier efforts. This time around, it is definitely to talk regarding the zero enrichment capability and sustained inspections by the IAEA, the organization responsible to understand atomic energy agency. So, its director is supposed to be continuing meeting in this talk. with the Iranian negotiators ahead of the discussions. The outcomes are still uncertain. Both sides remain far apart on key issues like enrichment limits, sanctions, and on verification. Meanwhile, Donald Trump did eye and speculate about regime change inside Iran. All of these
He's
issues.
not just speculating, he was very open and vocal about regime change is the answer. But he also must take into notice the clear Russian and Chinese threats, you can say, or assurance that they will not let it happen that way, because it is an independent country, and this regime that they are trying to remove, good or bad is a different thing, but it has been running there for over 42 years now, and suddenly Donald Trump is the person who thinks openly and preaching it to the world that remove, and if the rest of the world says that removal of Trump would be better for America, how would he think? This is absolutely not political, not diplomatic, not even gentlemanly.
I mean, if we look at Taiwan, it's a nation inside Asia, inside the bracket of the Pacific, and what we understand is that the US have not completely disarmed other nations as well. They have armed, in this case, $11 billion armaments package coming to Taiwan because of understanding the threat from across into the mainland of China. I want to short comment before we can head to a break. That the Chinese side is trying to tell Washington that be wary of supplying Taiwan with weapons. What is your observation?
If you look at the Chinese point of view and history and other things, this country that is now a country, this island, this was an integral part of the main China. The retreating forces before the Chinese Revolution, they fled the mainland and took shelter in this island at the fag end, and China did not proceed at that time, or could not maybe, but this is a Chinese territory, but large enough to form a part, form a state with American assistance and everything. Now it is a very successful state, but then it is part of China, so China has a right to claim. As more distant is and later occupied the Honolulu and all those things, the Pacific Islands of US.
Hawaii and
Honolulu is the capital. So they occupied it later. But traditionally, this was called Formosa. This is
Formosa,
Taipei. Taipei is the capital. This is a traditional Chinese territory. The retreating and defeated forces of Chiang Kai-shek left the mainland and took shelter in that island. And at the end of this long civil war, maybe Mao Zedong's people were also tired, so they thought, well, we'll see later. They consolidated their administration. But that does not make it an independent country. But America is helping them. That is, in a way, is gross interference in the internal affairs of China.